was with my wife when we were down in Gurney at what's the name of the amusement park?
Is it the Six Flags or whatever?
Yeah, Six Flags.
Mm-hmm.
Six Flags. And we're getting ready to get on a roller coaster, and someone pushed me from behind. I'm like, what the? It was Nate. He goes, before you leave the parking lot, I got sticks in my car if you want to train a little bit. And I'm like, oh man, I'd really like to, but kind of with folks. And but that's how he was. I mean, he would train on a dime.
Hello, my name is Jamie Sparling, and welcome to the FormABLE podcast. Today, my guest is Shawn McCarthy. He is a local Wisconsin collie and Jeet Kune Do instructor, as well as Silat out of Eau Claire, Wisconsin. And welcome to the FormABLE podcast, my brother.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you've been on my list. Enjoy seeing you every time I'm at the collie group. I know right now you're going out to the academy a lot. Yeah, it's really neat to see all the different things that you're doing. So I wanted to have you on the show. And in any career of martial arts or anything in general, as long as yours, you're gonna have plenty of FormABLE moments and life lessons in your training. So I'm really excited to have you on.
I'm excited to be here.
Right on, brother. Combined fighting systems. Yes? Tell me about it.
Combined fighting systems is something I put together late 84, 85. I had been in martial arts for several years at that point, and the traditional route wasn't cutting it for me.
Okay.
I found that I had done real traditional martial arts to that point, and there's nothing wrong with it. My philosophy is there's no such thing as a bad martial art.
Yes, sir. I agree.
And the more we can go out and grab to broaden our understanding of this monster that we both love and do,
mm-hmm.
the more well-rounded you can be.
Absolutely.
And so late 84, 85, I started combined fighting systems. And that at that time, combined fighting systems was actually just 4 systems. It was Taekwondo, it was Thai boxing, it was Kali Eskrima, and it was Wing Chun. Over the years, it's grown to its current state, which is it's doubled, which it's now all those things. So Taekwondo, Thai boxing. Taekwondo I use now is basically just the kicking mechanics.
Yeah.
I don't teach those traditional forms, but it's known for being a kicking system.
Mm-hmm.
And back in the day, that was my jam.
Really?
Yeah, I competed heavily. I did just about everything that was available. In the 80s, I did tournament sparring. When Tim had me on his show, we talked about that. Back in that day, it was hard point, so anything other than knocking out teeth, breaking bones, or knocking somebody unconscious was good. That was back in the day when handgear was just starting to come into its own. I had my first pair of Junris shortly after they came out, the foam gloves and feet. But prior to that, they were just layers of material. So it was basically just to make sure you didn't bruise up your knuckles too bad. It had no benefit for the receiver for that. So, and then again, it's Taekwondo, or excuse me, Kali. So it was the basic 4 that I described. And then over the 50 years now that 50 years next year that I've been doing martial arts, I added Pentateuch and Silat, American boxing. What else am I missing here? Pentateuch and JKD. I think that's all they ate.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what combined fighting systems is. What I'm different than most martial arts systems is that I only offer adult-based training.
Okay.
So many other martial arts systems across the country, don't provide a mix like this, other than Rick, Guro Rick, Guro Dan, and so forth. But it's adult based, so there's so many people out there that want to train, but they don't want to train with kids.
Yeah.
They want to be in an adult environment, and that's what the whole focus is. So the youngest that I have is 16. The oldest I have is 74.
Oh, God bless. That's great, brother.
Yeah, it's
That's
very, very
great.
cool.
Yeah.
And he is, I always ask him, I said, Tom, is this okay for you to do? Is this
Mm-hmm.
outside your physical comfort? He goes, nope, I paid my money. I'm doing it all. So he's a joy to have in class and a real go-getter. Real
Yeah.
go-getter. But that's combined fighting systems. And then I do off of combined fighting systems. I've developed courses for law enforcement
Nice.
and healthcare that are specifically for those that I've taught over the years and so forth. But that's combined fighting systems. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great, man. What I got out of that is you're doing the college JKD blend, but it's still a touch of your own personal history. I really like that.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know about you, but for me at our school, it's the only way all I can do is use my experience, right? Whatever that is, and it'll never quite look like maybe somebody else, and hopefully it'll look like something. But at the same time, it's going to have its pieces of our story kind of built in, our formal moments, if you will, formable arts, right? Different
Right.
things.
Well, the neat part of what we do and the organizations that both of us are involved in,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be Grow Nate Defensor System
Yes, sir.
or Grow Rick Fay and MKG
Mm-hmm.
or Grow Dan, all those pieces encourage you to absorb what you can out of what they teach,
Mm-hmm.
and they encourage you to explore and use what you can do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or what interests you. And that's one of the things that I can't say enough about my experiences at MKG, because
Yeah.
Guro Rick, an amazing man, and very, very genuine individual, is so free with his knowledge. And any of his instructors that you go to,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be Josh Pryor, great guy down in Madison,
Mm-hmm.
folks up in Duluth, Minnesota, or
Overseas.
MKG, yeah, overseas, MKG North, anywhere in the States or overseas, you're going to get a different flavor of what MKG is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the coolest thing ever, to be able to do that. And not only is Girl Rick okay with that, everybody in the MKG family is okay with that. And for it, when you look at our traditional system versus what we do, that's rare.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
And the culture that they have there is rare. It's the warm, inviting environment, both at the academy out in LA, I should say, Marino Del Rey, or in Minnesota,
Mm-hmm.
is the best. I mean, the people are just super talented. I always tell people when they talk to me about this kind of stuff is I'm the smallest fish in the largest pond of huge talent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can relate to that, brother, for sure.
And there's so many of these people that Girl Rick has produced, Girl Dan has produced. The neat part of that is I have not met one out of my time with either that I was like, dude, have a nice day. See ya. Don't want to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
They've all been fantastic individuals, and I can't say enough about either of those organizations. Just really cool people.
Isn't that fascinating? I'm sure that many people have brought up to you over the years, like, doesn't martial arts make you more violent? Or will it make my kid more violent or whatever? And that's very rare that would ever happen. If anything, it is such a paradigm that it shifts to the other side, especially in an eclectic art like JKD and in those systems and styles, we're learning about different cultures. We're learning how different people think, right? There's so much more to it than the martial art. I just find that part to be fascinating myself.
Well, it is, and if you look at things like CLOT, and if when you do a deep dive into that practice of that art, they touch you, they break you. It's fascinating. It really is. You talk about the history and how it comes apart. but when I was recently out in the academy to see girl was talking about that Kali and Silat, they're not, there's no separation. It's one. And the history that he puts behind that statement, I look at my notes, and it took me, when I was there, I walked away with 20, close to 30 pages of notes. And once I sat down and retyped them, I'm almost double that, just because of all the, he said, but those are things that empower us as instructors to be able to go out and share that knowledge and pass the torch, right? Because we're baton holders,
yes,
to our students, and be able to share that message and the history. The history is so rich, and see how this whole thing has evolved is mind blowing.
Yeah, the whole history behind it, the small moments as to sometimes why. In a culture, in the Harimau and the Silat, right? You're down on one knee. Well, you're in the rainforest. You're not going to get up and move around and shift like an athlete so much, right? Because you end up on the ground anyway. So you might as well start there, right? Just different ideas and concepts. It's never.
Well, then you look at that and compare it to Mao's, SSBD, where it's royalty, and they want to break somebody and dump them off the bridge so they don't mess up their clothes. And to see that man and his skill set in real life as he makes people fly, is, there's no words for it unless you've seen it. I mean, you can watch it all day on YouTube.
I remember being your partner.
What?
I was your partner for one of the Mount Horny, for a day. And I tell my students, and I will show sometimes a video of him, right? But I remember him doing a gunting movement that hyper extended my arm, didn't whatever, but I felt an electric jolt as opposed to it was the coolest thing ever, Shawn. I think I turned around, I looked at you with this glazed over look in my eye, I don't know, but I finally, I felt like I finally understood when Robin got bammed or something happened, because he just went zap. And that was just amazing.
The routes were so clean, so direct. But when you look at things like Silat, you look at all those other things. I like, and it's not that I don't think that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu doesn't have value. It does, and I think that, like yourself, that has worked out now as the blue belt. Congratulations again. Or your purple belt.
Yes, sir. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, paper belt. I'm sorry.
You're good, brother. You're good, man.
But that working that knowledge is amazing, and I think it's very talented. But for me, my ground game involves the basics of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So what we have in our system is we have ground basics. And ground basics, I connect the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu finishes and escapes, because all I wanted, our focus is adult defensive structure, right? For every day is kind of our motto. And we want to get back to our feet. We don't want to work on the arm bars and the locks and so forth to further that. If we do, we follow the Dumag or Silat model. Where I want to be in a position where I can deal with the multiple attackers or
leave.
And that's the beauty of it. And the other thing that I like about the Silat portion of our program is the fact that there's this misnomer for people that have not trained in that, when they think that if I'm standing, I'm in a superior position.
Yes, sir. Yeah, absolutely. Not always. Not always.
Not with Silat.
Yeah, exactly.
Harimau, going from stand to ground, and the different ways of taking a standing opponent that's over you down, and then it's just a walking mat over them to a standing position overhead. All those things for for a defensive structure for every day, especially since we live in Wisconsin, right? 6 months out of the year, we're talking snow and ice. And then we're also talking any other time that there could be sand or gravel that you could end up slipping and falling on your back when even the perfect defensive structure happens.
Good for you. I really like that idea because you don't have to address it in a BJJ fashion or a grappling fashion, but it needs to be addressed for it to be a whole system, right? And that's one of those things that, as we're putting together our AIM program, it's taken me 15 years. I never wanted to do necessarily like a rank program, but now we have basically sashes that are ICOTs.
I noticed that.
Yeah.
That's very cool, Jamie.
Yeah, thank you, brother.
Very cool.
That's something I've always wanted to do, and then with the idea that they will learn some chokes and some ways to use even the belt, right? So they're weaponizing everything to a greater or lesser degree.
Right.
But I have yet to award any black sashes in my life. Right, this is all like a new thing, but at the same time, just like yourself, I told the students, you're gonna have to be on the ground a little bit. You don't have to like it. You don't have to BJJ. You don't have to like any part of it. Sometimes when I do a martial art, I'll have an experience, and sometimes the experience is only, I don't want to do that again, right? But at the same time, I experienced it, and I want to understand a little bit about it, So I like the fact that obviously 8 systems combined fighting systems is, I have no doubt it's thorough, but I think it's really neat that you address that piece.
Well, we do, and we do that once a week. So
nice.
I just moved, once a month. We since I moved into my new facility, I've expanded my class schedule, which allows me to cover this behemoth of a curriculum.
Yeah.
And do that. But it's what I do is the first week of every month is ground week, that's ground weekend in our training. So we do everything from addressing the basic mechanics. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is amazing, and how they control either the person on top or if you're on top, that position. And those are the basic things that I'm looking for. So we look at the basic things that we do, because if you compare Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to Dumag, branch up, or Gamora, or what, I'm not sure what they call it in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but it's the same.
Yes,
branch
sir.
down.
Whether it's an Americana, it's a V-arm lock. To us, that's branch up, branch down, vertical branch.
Yep, and in Dumag, it's branch up, branch down, branch out. And so that's the kind of stuff that we focus on. And then we tie in the ground stuff, and then we tie in the flexible weapons from the ground to stand, which is again, the mindset that I use is much different than other school sets, especially in my area. It's all about trying to deal with the real world situation, not anything competitive. Most traditional systems today have a strong competitive mindset, and I get that. That's where I came from. I'm a second degree in Taekwondo. I competed at a high level. I did some local full contact matches just to say I did them.
Experience.
All that stuff. Our system allows us to get that same benefit without making people gun shy to try them. For sure. And that's the different way I look at that, or how I teach that, so that number one, that everybody's growing. And the big thing is that what I found for most adults is they aren't comfortable owning their own space. So my goal is to allow them and give them permission. One, that violence is okay when you have to defend yourself. Number two is you own your space. You don't let people into that space unless you give them permission. And the funny part of that, Jamie, is in dealing with everything from healthcare providers, or excuse me, we'll even go farther than that. We'll go from my awareness level training for defensive workshops and so forth, all the way through to my students, to healthcare professionals, to security professionals, to law enforcement that I've dealt with. Doesn't matter the job title. People don't have a comfort in managing their own personal space. So, are you familiar? I'm sure you are because of your background, but the sociological model of the concentric rings for spatial relationships with your environment. Okay, so it's the outer ring are, this is for those that, if you had sociology, they bring these rings out and they say that the outside ring is the general public, people that you deal with on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. You don't know them, you don't know if they're a threat, and so forth. And you normally keep those folks at a greater distance. The next ring are those people that you perhaps work with on a daily basis that you're familiar are, you'll say hi to, but you're still not comfortable saying, hey, let's go grab a cup of coffee, right? Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Then we get into those friends circle that you are interacting with at a higher frequency, you go and do things with, you may go have lunch with. Then we have your family, and then you have your significant other ring. So when we talk about that, when we look, in sociology, they always use a test of one's bubble, right? So what they do is they'll have a perfect stranger walk up to another individual, and you tell that person, wait, that's close enough, I don't feel comfortable. And it's interesting how that varies with each person. Mm-hmm. But when you get to that critical bubble of where you're just not comfortable, people's eyeballs sweat and they get really nervous. Now, so to give you an example, my wife is not a hugger. She likes her personal space, and she also works in healthcare. Her coworkers love to crash her bubble every day, give her a hug and get in their personal space. And you can tell she's gotten better with it over time, but you can see the difference in just her general demeanor, right? But we take that model as we break down that barrier for most individuals, and we I teach them how to gauge that and use that spacing to help them manage their own space. Yeah. And then we take that same model, and now we take those original titles off and we add in your defensive tools, kicking range, punching range, grappling, elbow range, knee range, all those that would fit into those same categories for space. And I work with them to develop tools in their toolbox. Nice. To say, oh, here's where this is. Now I can do, if I need to, this is what I do. So we talk a lot about those types of things, but a lot of those people in general, law enforcement included, that are highly trained individuals, that are, of all the people that I train, you look at those people, then what they carry on a daily basis, right? I would be nervous to have somebody encroach that space too, right? Mm-hmm. But because they have firearms and all that stuff that are on their belt. But in general, even if those things aren't present, they're not extremely comfortable with somebody within arm's reach. And so building that comfort level, all those things help develop their self-confidence. So when we talk about sparring and so forth, if you have somebody that's a very skilled person that's really good in sparring, and you get somebody that's just, this is not really not their cup of tea, or they're not comfortable with using the tools that they already have, what you see is that person regress or become space. Right. Mm-hmm. Well, they become more fearful of, if I do this, I'm going to get hit. Mm-hmm. So our model that I use is different through the drills that we use in Silat and Pentateuch and Kali and even Muay Thai to help build that confidence and that skill level to help them own their space. That's the goal. That's
really cool. I didn't really think of it so much in that sociological piece, but when I was in my 20s, I lived in New York City. And when I lived in New York City, it was very different for me to have everybody so close, right? And I notice now, especially if we're doing a drill like hoobut in class, that my students will start way far out and won't be in the proper space, and
Because
I,
they're not afraid. They're afraid of owning that space.
well, not only that, what I tend to think is that they're too Midwest nice.
Well,
I mean, we got a lot of space here,
so
and that was kind of like a piece of, well, you're gonna have to get a
so
little bit closer.
I lived in Chicago for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Took a year off of college. Went and worked with my brother-in-law. He was a broker. He worked in a brokerage firm down there, and I just wanted to try the big city life. And the difference that I found from people up. By the way, you now live in my hometown. I didn't know if you knew that.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
I remember.
but if we look at people from Wausau,
Mm-hmm.
and we look at people from Chicago, people from Wausau, if you meet them, are more likely to say, "Hey, Jamie, weren't you at the softball game last night? How you doing?" Whereas people from Chicago would be like, "What do you want? What do you want to talk to me for? What?" And I would imagine that was the same thing in New York. They were not, people weren't as approachable. They were more leery of
Yes and
relationships or encounters with others.
yes and no. The way I described it was, if somebody knew you, they'll cross the street and give you a hug, really encroach your
Oh,
space, might
cool.
even kiss you on the cheek. Okay, right? But they just passed 450 people in the last block. Two of them might have been dead, and they didn't notice, right? And that, just one of those. That's the way that I always felt about it. Those that
Sure.
I knew, it was very reciprocal, even more so than some in the Midwest. But,
Right.
on a day to day basis, more people just, they deal with others and whatnot. I just think that's absolutely fascinating because we talk about the same spatial relationship, quite often, and I don't come at it from a sociological view. I really just kind of crack my joke about, having to go from, being in line where you give somebody this much room to you're like this and you're in line. If you move to the left to give yourself space, you're out of line. You lost your place. So you just got
Right.
to get used to it.
So I do that, and then I use a military model
Okay.
where we're talking about the reactionary gap and the things that we, and then I take the other side of that, and I say, so some of the things we learned from the days of COVID is that you want to maintain a space of roughly 12 feet from an infectious disease perspective. But that model is really where you should be valuing 12 to 14 feet. As I train my people, is 12 to 14 feet is really, excuse me, where you're starting to evaluate friend, foe, threat.
I agree.
And because the beauty of what I love about what we teach is the fact that the model of Kali, the base model of Kali is to fang the snake.
Sir.
And to get to zero pressure.
Yeah.
And what zero pressure does is it gives you the ability to slow the reactionary gap and speed the reactionary gap of the threat. And by doing that, those things turn the tide and allow you to take the other founding principle of the Indonesian martial arts is counteroffensive, offensive. You may attack, but then it's my turn and it's no longer your turn. That's the methodology that I use in combined fighting systems. So I base a lot of the practice and the drills and the emphasis on those founding principles to help build that skill set of owning one's personal space by filling their toolbox with giving them the tools to deal with all the rings and understanding that, well, a classic example was I have a young gal in my class that's she must be 5'5", and we were practicing a spiking elbow, and then a a piercing or like a rhinocecal elbow. And she goes, can I ask a question? I said, absolutely. And she says, I don't see me using this. And I said, why do you not see that? I just don't. Well, look at you. You're 6'1". There's no way I'm going to use that. And I said, well, you have to take a look at this. And the other thing that I try to do with my people is, you're thinking one dimensional.
Yeah.
You're thinking always a bigger opponent, always in equal heights. And that's not realistic. You need to think in a 3D model, thinking, I have a toolbox. That may not be the tool that I come out with, but it's still a tool. Once you try to pick me up, now if the bear hug around the waist, if I do that, guess what? You're looking me right in the eye, and now that spike yell will make sense. So that goes to bridge the nose, face, whatever. And the look on her face was I have these conversations with a lot of my students as they start, because they're questioning technique versus value. And I said, you have to understand that when we look at this, we have to look at, we're preparing ourselves to be thrown in the ocean. And if you've not learned how to swim, does it matter if you've been thrown in the ocean or off of a building? And they go, well, yeah, I guess that's right. So we have to build that toolbox. You have to understand the value of each tool, and you need to learn how to be comfortable enough to pull it out and to be able to use it effectively. But that's fun thing. I love empowering my students. I love being able to make those light bulbs go on. I don't know if you've had that experience with your students. You work with them. All of a sudden, the concept that you've been working on for weeks, it comes on, and their face and their eyes light up like Christmas morning. And that for me is my bonus, my payday, why I do what I do. Having that ability to empower somebody where they feel that interpersonal strength that translates into owning their space and be able to be bigger than when they started with me. It's a cool thing.
It's a very cool thing. And literally, one of the things you said that struck a chord with me was how people get bigger. And I have certain students and my kiddos that are getting bigger, and they start and they're punching like this. And then all of a sudden, they're really reaching. And when that happens, that's when it fills my heart. And I go, okay, well, now this is really going into their self-confidence.
Yep.
Where before it was a little smaller, and that's okay. Maybe you're practicing a pump fake, whatever that is, right? But really, when they're reaching and you watch someone come into their body, there is nothing cooler than the way that they leave class with their head up and they're like, all right.
Right. Well, and that's, if you think about this, the defensive model for anything, if there's some really good books that I always recommend for my students to read and so forth. And one of those, it's a person has violent tendencies is going to use violence for achieving their goals, or they've used violence their whole life in that process.
Worked for him so far, right?
Yeah, right. They're going to go against the one that's going to provide the least amount of hassle. So it's separating out the weak from the herd. By having a good self-esteem, owning one's space, you carry yourself differently. Brilliant. You project confidence, and that helps not only in the class, or if you have to use that for defense, but it helps you in life. It makes you stronger. It makes you more confident to try things that are out of your comfort zone. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about what we do, is that empowerment of an individual to be confident enough to explore their world and things that they may come in contact with that maybe they weren't, because I deal with everything from I have law enforcement guys in my class. I have young kids just out of high school and or in high school, to people that are instructors in other systems and so forth that train with me. and to see that they all have those similarities of needing to work on those things and giving that empowerment is, man, that's my jam.
Good for you. I can even see the way that you smile and you like light up when you talk about it. It's the same thing for me, right? And
Yeah.
it's just neat to see it. If there are some certain instructors in my life that if I hadn't met them at the right time, my life
Mm-hmm.
probably could have been very, very different.
Sure.
Such as my very first teacher, Guru Steve Fristo. He was visually impaired, and I picked him up and drove him home. And on Friday nights, when the big parties were going down and all my friends were doing very shady shit, I picked up my instructor and took him home. And then he wanted to stop and
That's
get
awesome.
something to eat. And so there were
Sure.
many a nights, there was no cell phones back in the day. I guess I'll just go.
Thank God.
Yeah, I guess I'll just go home, go to bed, and then get up and maybe train again in the morning.
Yeah, there's I say the same thing. There's I kind of chuckled in your statement early in the conversation about I remember how you put it about not getting yourself in trouble or whatever with martial arts training and stuff. And
Yeah,
yeah, that was, I say I'm Irish to my core, so
yeah.
quick to anger when I was younger, always ready to. And the funny thing it was, up until my first year of college, I was, what was I? I was 110 pounds and 5'11",
Wow.
and I went my first year of college and got my growth spurt first year of college, 6'1", 190, and that's where I stayed then. That was my fight weight for many years, but I was scrawny, so I was always the one that got picked out of the crowd to pick on, or all that stuff. So you either have to have a feisty attitude or know how to fight. Well, in the early days before I started martial arts, I had neither. So
I relate to you, brother. I was just fat,
but
and there was I'd make them laugh every once in a while. It was about as good as it got.
but
But I was usually the odd man out, or the person that someone might bully, or definitely the
but
last person to get picked in anything if it was a team sport. If it involved a ball, and to this day, Sean, if it involves gravity or a ball, I'd much rather have a man try to choke me. I'd feel more comfortable with it, right? I don't know. And people are like, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, "Absolutely fucking sure." Excuse my language, but
I was
absolutely
I
sure. Yeah.
was always in athletics. I was a
Really?
jock growing up. Yeah, I played football 1 year, but that wasn't my cup of tea. And ended up to be a competitive swimmer. I swam 4 years. Ended up to be 12th in conference and 13th in sectionals for the state in long distance swimming. So always had that competitive nature, and one of the reasons why I really got into once I as I was going up in rank in the traditional systems, I did a lot of competitive martial arts. Like I said, there's not much I haven't tried. There wasn't anything even close to MMA back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm dating myself a bit. Being I started in 1976 in the martial arts at the local YMCA. My president and I saw a gentleman working out and practicing at the Y by himself. But of course, we found him. You ain't gonna hide. And begged him and begged him and pestered him and pestered him. And finally, he taught us until I graduated and then got into another school came into the Wausau area, a Taekwondo school,
Mm-hmm.
and that was more my forte, always being flexible and so forth, and so made my way through the ranks there and ended up getting my second degree and did the tournament circuit for a long time. One of my good friends and I, Tim Easker, would load up one of our cars, and every weekend when we're home from school, we did the tournament circuit. We'd had a tournament every weekend. That was cool. Those things give you a lot, but it also taught me a lot of different things that I ended up using later when I trained fighters and that type of thing. It's a real cool thing.
It is a really cool thing. I think it's cool when people do competitive martial arts. There are different things. I've got to do it. I did like three or four little. I mean, little is the number one thing I want you to understand, Shawn. They were very small Brazilian
Sure.
Jiu-Jitsu tournaments, and I did them.
Oh, good for you.
I did them as a white belt, and at the school I was going to,
Good for you. That's awesome.
well, thank you. They had at blue belt you could start doing leg locks, and I had a bad knee, so I figured if I'm gonna compete, I'm gonna give this a shot. When I got my, as a white belt, I think it was a 3 stripe or 4 stripe white belt or something like that. But it was really weird because I was also training at an MMA gym, and I didn't have much money, and so I was their striking coach, so I was allowed to do Brazilian jiu, like to go and do their jiu-jitsu class on top of the other ones.
Nice.
And well, anyway, long story short, I ended up on an airplane one time and I met Chris Lytle from the UFC. And one of the things that we talked about was that if I'm going to help coach people, I should have been try the competitive environment once, right?
Sure.
Especially because I was never in sports, and well, I think martial arts, just like Rick says, whatever, no one's martial art experience is more valid than anybody else.
Oh,
We're
you're
all
right.
doing it for different reasons, right? And for somebody that it's health and wellness, or they're battling depression, maybe it looks
Yep.
like Tai Chi, maybe it looks like Thai boxing, maybe it
Right.
looks like jujitsu, you know, however anybody does it, this stuff seems to just help people in their life.
Well, just like you're saying, I mean, girl Dan talks about this all the time. He said if we would go to a smorgasbord, no one's plate's going to look the same by the time we get to the end of the line. Or if we look at our playlists, we're not going to have the same music.
Mm-hmm.
And then he makes the comments about country music, and I always chuckle when he does that around Rick, and he knows that's Rick's jam,
Yeah.
but it's true. And that's the beauty of where I went, how I did what I ended up doing, all those things. Girl Dan also talks about the climbing of the mountain, and everybody takes their own path. I love that. I love that saying. It's one of my favorites. As I, was preparing for our conversation today, and I looked at, things I've done and what I've done and so forth. All those things had an end to a means, right? They steered me up that path to different places that today I look back and just am so blessed that I've had the people around me, the connections that I had, to get where I am. When I was going through college, we had a group of 5 or 6 of us that we would come home on the weekends or we over holidays,
Mm-hmm.
and we would all share, because in college they'll have all these clubs that you can try all this different stuff, and one of my friends were the Peterson brothers, Tim and Steve, and exceptional martial artists, both of them. And Steve came back from Madison, and he moved differently, and he was more elusive than he was when he went to college. And I'm like, what are you doing? Who you been training with, and where can I find this? And that's where I met Nate Defenser.
Really?
He was my first. That was early in his system development too. He didn't have the red shirts yet. Everybody, red shirts were his instructors.
Mm-hmm.
I went down and met Nate, and what an amazing man he was. He's so. That's where I also had my first Filipino food is through Nate.
Me too.
which is pretty wild. As he chuckled on when I ate the hot stuff, but
I can hear his laugh.
yep, yep, and I stayed connected with him through his life from that point on. And he'd have weekend intensive seminars there, 4 days down in Dodgeville that I would do with the Peterson boys.
Mm-hmm.
That was and eventually he authorized me to be able to teach the Defenser method and stuff. And he was the coolest guy. He came and stayed with me when he did a couple seminars for me up in Lawson, and we trained until I finally said, I can't anymore. I gotta go to sleep. But he was, that's the coolest thing of the Filipino or Indonesian culture. Their willingness to give of themselves to help foster the arts. Amazing man. Amazing man. I think about him often. The world lost a very, very neat man when he passed.
I agree. I got to spend some time with him, and just like so many other folks, I wish I would have spent more time. He was such an amazing teacher, and the levels, I thought, in his progression was really cool. When I started with him, there were 5 levels, and there were 3 tests for each level. And I went through level 2 instructor, 2A, I think. But we still use the classical angles of attack here at our school. Especially in our children's program, we have a couple CLOT forms that we use, and then we also will do the classical angles of attack, because especially children really like sets, and it's good for them to be able to practice it and get into it and all those different things.
And that's one of the things that I like about and what I use in my system for. My favorite part of striking is Thai boxing.
Yeah.
The way it's just so much different than a traditional system. Most traditional systems are hinge kicks. Nothing wrong with hinge kicks, but the ability to use your body weight and double it at impact with Muay Thai there's nothing like it. And the progressions that they teach with those sets, whether it be 4 count all the way up, right?
Yeah,
they teach the body coordination, timing, distancing, and switching ranges from kicking range to punching range to elbow range to knee range and then back out. Those mechanics are fundamental for our program, and they're huge. But getting back to Nate, he just I remember was with my wife when we were down in Gurney, and at what's the name of the amusement park?
Is it the Six Flags or whatever?
Yeah, Six Flags. Mm-hmm. Six Flags. And we're getting ready to get on a roller coaster, and someone pushed me from behind. I'm like, what the? It was Nate. He goes, before you leave the parking lot, I got sticks in my car if you want to train a little bit. And I'm like, oh man, I'd really like to, but kind of with folks. And but that's how he was. I mean, he would train on a dime.
Yes.
Went down to Chicago a couple times. He met me, and he's just this amazing guy. I truly miss him.
Absolutely. Maybe so his senior student, we're talking about bringing him to the Wausau area.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so maybe that's something you'd be interested in. Maybe we could.
I could bring some students with me. I haven't connected with any of those. I'm trying to think of Nate's number one guy for so many years. what was his name? It's going to drive me nuts until I
Are you
think of it. But
thinking,
yeah,
is there a gentleman, possibly, are you thinking about a Guru Rich?
yes, Rich Myers.
So Rich, I never got to train with Rich, but
Oh, he was
Rich,
amazing.
Guru Rich trained Guru Jason, and then Guru Jason stayed with Guru Nate, and he is still carrying on the Defensor method system now.
That's
So,
awesome.
so yeah, we
In fact, Rich, I was my first girl dance seminar in '84 at the Dagobert Academy. Day one, I'm looking around, looking, like a kid in a candy shop. I'm going to get to meet the girl Dan Innisano, right? And Rich came and tapped me on the shoulder. Hey, are you here for the seminar? Yeah. So I actually partnered with him for that first day of drinking from
the
the
fire
Hoover Dam.
hose.
No, it wasn't back in that day. It wasn't a fire hose, my friend. It was the Hoover Dam. He just opened all the gates. I've never. I was telling Tim this. I found my notebook from there when we're doing some reorganization of our storage room in the house, and first 5 sentences I can understand, and the rest looks like a chicken walked across my paper for the next 15. But that's when Guro Dan would go. He would teach a set. He'd give you 5 minutes, and then it was another 3 sets. And I was like, blew my brain, but yeah. But uh, Rich was a character. He was he would come up to, or he would be at the Dodgeville seminars, of course, but then my friend Steve was going to UW Madison, and that's where I went down and trained with Nate quite a bit on the weekends in the Red Gym down in Madison. So he'd have seminars there almost every weekend. Just amazing guy, like I said.
My first Guru, Steve and Nate, were very, very close. So that was always something we talked about was Nate, and it's really funny because one of my DM brothers and one of my really good friends just reached out to me because I have a DVD set of Guru Nate Defensor when he was in 1986 teaching at the Durgerberg Academy. It's horrible footage, horrible footage.
Yeah.
But my
Have you ever
one,
been to the Dagobert Academy?
yeah, I got to see Guru
That
there
that is a
once.
crazy cool facility.
Yeah, it was very cool. I got to see Pa Herman Sawanda there as well.
Nice.
Yeah, that is really, really a neat place for sure.
And Fred Dagobert, that is an interesting dude. He
So
is he is pretty cool too.
I had one interaction with him, sir. Okay, and it was so funny because Guru Steve knew I was going to move to New York City, and so this was like maybe within like a month, and we went to go see Herman Sawanda. And there's a guy, when Guru talks about Eddie Joffrey, Suriati Joffrey, he was out in New York, and he was the story of the Majapahit that Guru tells about the general, about Alexander the Great and the four gentlemen, that came from Sir Eddie Joffrey. They just called him Eddie Joffrey, but he was in New York. And so Steve told me to walk up and ask him, Guru Fred Durgerberg, how to get a hold of Eddie Joffrey, because I was going to move to New York City. It's the
Yeah.
90s, right? And I walk up and wait my turn. I get right up to the front, and I'm 20 years old, 19, 18. I'm like, so do you know how to get a hold of like Eddie Joffrey in New York, sir? I'm going to move to New
Sure.
York. And he stops me in the middle and he goes, Eddie Joffrey's dead. And I was like, what? And I was completely thrown off. And
Yeah.
and then Fred Durgerberg said, because we were at a Herman Sawanda seminar, he goes, why don't you just ask him? And I was like, oh, okay, all right. So then I went and I asked Pa Herman,
Nice.
yeah, if he had a teacher in New York City, and he had trained a gentleman who was a Catholic priest, who,
Wow.
so I got to go out and we would go to the rectory, to the church, and he didn't have a school, but they'd move out the chairs and he would throw me and put it on me a little bit. But
Nice.
yeah, and if
Very
it
cool.
wasn't for my chance ordeal there with Fred Durgaberg, where I asked a question that was obviously pretty ludicrous, I had no idea, and then he told me to go over there, it would have never happened. So it's funny you bring that
Sure.
up. Yeah, it's funny how
He
life
was a
works.
character, though. And I never had really a lot of interaction with him, but I know people that have,
Yeah,
and some of the stories I've heard were pretty interesting. Well, for the 70s, 80s, and part of the 90s, the Dagobah Academy was the place to go. Until Pete Hendricks started putting the Janesville stuff together and so forth. But he had anybody that was anybody that came there, and I just remember driving on Lincoln Avenue to get to his school, and it was interesting.
yeah, yeah.
That's an interesting part of Chicago.
Oh, well, exactly. And if you're driving in from out of town, yeah, the heart rate was
Well,
already up by the time you got to the academy, and if you got parking and everything,
yeah,
you're ready.
yeah.
You're ready to
That's
jump
not
right in.
too far from the loop either.
No, not at all.
Right.
Not at all. Brother, I wanted to ask you, there's a question that I ask all my guests, and I'm going to make it a little bit more broad for you.
Sure.
Yeah. So if you had to give someone advice to start in martial arts, something that you think it would be easy for them to do in the next 24 hours, in the next week, maybe even. Yeah. What was it one piece of advice you would give a beginner, sir?
In a beginner of what I do, or in general,
Sure. In general, but let's say just for you, what do you tell your beginners?
I tell them footwork.
Footwork.
Footwork. I mean, what we do is, uh, if you think about what we do, and you look at a traditional model, which, like I said, my first stint of this whole martial art journey over the last 50 years was traditional, right? And their footwork is, let's just say, different, and doesn't, for me personally, doesn't provide the flexibility and so forth. So what I always tell my folks are to do is I have actually put together on my YouTube channel, I put a 30-day footwork challenge to help orientate them to movement, right?
Yeah,
Because Indonesian martial arts is, I would say, footwork intensive, and that
I agree.
the motion, the stuff that when we look at our traditional system again, we look at it and compare that to what we do. Because of how it's been taught for centuries for the traditional systems, it's an easier process in general, right? But what we do, there's, for a new person to come in, footwork is the thing that differentiates them, because that angular footwork is challenging. So footwork is a big thing. And then I always tell my new people, now you're gonna look at me strange when I tell you this, but I'm going to teach you how to move and act that's contrary to anything you've ever seen.
Yeah.
And so what I want you to do is patience, right? You're going to feel uncomfortable in what you're doing. It's not going to feel natural for the first 2 months. And to help you in the process, if you really want to knock down that edge, your footwork, male and female footwork, are huge. If you can do that and understand the relationship of when and why, and practice that 5 to 10 minutes a day out of class, you're going to see yourself skyrocket through what we're going to do.
Nice.
The big thing is, again, is I try to make things as easier for my beginners as possible, and as every instructor does. So
We hope.
I,
We hope.
my
Right.
Yeah, but the first level one of my system is the learning how to flow, learning how to move is right underneath in parentheses. Level one, learning to move.
Beautiful.
And it's those types of drills that are reinforce that behavior of male and female footwork or boxing footwork, that everything that they're going to learn in that first level helps them with that. So yeah, it's definitely footwork in the Indonesian martial arts. It can be challenging if you don't get it right, because we rarely move in straight lines.
I like that. I really do. Uh, Back in the '90s, I was able to go to a Junfan Jeet Do seminar.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, and there was a gentleman, it was Tim Tackett, but he showed the
Oh,
the
Mr. Tackett. Oh,
JKD triangle. And I'll never forget it. The base of it was footwork and mobility. And to this day, whether it's like in our Brazilian Jiu Jitsu class, we tend to do one technique and a lot of movement skill drills. And then maybe a little bit of rolling at the end,
that's cool.
and I think that is a really good base. And if a lot of different cultures and a lot of different arts can agree, then
Right.
obviously that's a good place to.
Well, the thing that I always tell my students is, so if you look at the UFC,
Mhm.
all good.
Yeah.
That I mean, that's their thing that they want to watch nowadays. Any type of competitive martial arts, traditional systems, they come out like two rams on the top of a hill,
Hmm.
and they bang until the weaker of the two or less skill of the two is done, right? And I said, I'm 66. I'm going to be 66 this fall. And I can't compete with a 14-year-old. Athleticism and just age difference.
Hmm.
But that teenager is not going to move the way I do, which gives me the advantage. What we want to do, what I try to teach them with that footwork, is that we want to get to zero pressure, right? We want to have more tools to bear on any encounter. That's why in the Indonesian martial arts, a practitioner delivers more blows often, and are more. It's more how they can gain beats in a confrontation is because of their positioning, and it helps you really again manage the reactionary gap, because if I'm behind you or I'm on the side of you, you have to turn towards me. And that's where the angular footwork, no matter if it's advancing or retreating, gives you that distinct advantage of honing in those skills. And because you're changing the tempo of that confrontation, right? And often, just by positioning, if we think about that in a larger theater of multiple attackers, you can't go head to head, because if you go head to head, sooner or later they're going to be around you. So by positioning your body using angular footwork,
Unless you can get them to all go around in a circle and take turns attacking,
well,
like Chuck
right.
Norris. No, I know, you know what I mean, or like in the movies or something like that, right?
Or you can convince them the Three Stooges were all right and lining up for you. But
Certainly, yeah, that's
certainly,
it. That's
yeah.
it. You know what I mean?
But the things that I've seen Girl Dan do and I've seen Rick do, when you look at that and you break down those skill sets, it's all predicated off of movement. All predicated off of movement. And Rick, even to this day, moves so smoothly, and is, as my instructor and an instructor underneath him, I marvel at every time he demos. It's like a breath. There's no beginning, there's no end. It just flows, and he always has you where he wants you.
Yes.
He really does. And the same thing with Girl Dan. When I was out there for CLAT camp, he always comes out and says, well, my shoulder doesn't work as well, and I don't move as well. And he goes, well, just you're gonna throw me a punch there, and he just it's just like watching.
I know.
It's crazy. When I tell my students that have never seen it before they go to a seminar, I said my instructor, Guro Shawn, at that time when I mentioned this was 87, and I said, you're never going to see an 87-year-old like this again in your lifetime, because he may be 87, but he moves like a 16-year-old. The problem is you can't find a 16-year-old that moves that well. And he just flows. Mm-hmm. And that's why when Guro demonstrates body manipulation or off balancing, if Joel throws a degree off to the left or a degree off to the right,
we're learning something different.
The 5 that we started with now becomes 12.
Yes, sir.
And that's what I love about that. I mean, it's to see that, and the detail that he provides with that is just, I can't get enough of him. And that's why I'm taking every opportunity to get out to LA and spend as much time with it as I can. He's just an amazing man. And again, I think I mentioned this to Tim. It doesn't matter if you're walking into MKG or you're walking into the academy in Marina Del Rey. You're treated like the long lost brother that's come in for the week. Mm-hmm. And you're treated, it's such a breath of fresh air. When I was in traditional systems, you back in the day, so Guro Dan and all the work that he did with Bruce Lee and so forth about busting down barriers. Back then in the 80s, you walk into a school and you're doing something other than that school teaches. They wanted to throw down right there to prove you that you were wrong in what you were doing. You had one master, you had one instructor. You shouldn't ever should have blinders on. You should never look left. You should right. Everything you need is right in front of you, and it's never been that way with Guro Nate, with Guro Dan, with Guro Rick. Any of the people all the amazing people that have walked through those doors, the top in the world that he's brought in for seminars, none of them are that way. Not a one of them. And it's so refreshing and amazing that we are a part of such a inclusive community. And it's truly a community. We're all treated, we treat each other with dignity, respect, and we have just a wonderful time together.
Yeah, and sometimes the martial arts can be great. I've been at academies where the martial arts was super high level and I definitely wanted to learn it. But the vibe and the people wasn't for me. And in my younger years, I tried to pour myself into that mold, and it never worked out. There was always some other piece, But I almost
you'll be able to relate to this. So Peter Kwan, amazing guy,
yeah,
and a dear friend. But when I came to and started training at MKG, Peter came up to me and we started talking and got along right away. And I remember taking my first several CLI classes, and they're doing the Juros, the low, makes my knees, ankles, and back hurt just looking at them sets. And I physically couldn't do them, being 6'1" and bad kicking knees. But and he came up to me and said, "So what do you think of CLI?" And I said, "I think it's the coolest thing I've ever seen, but I can't do this low ground stuff." And he goes, "Then don't." I looked at him, and first I looked at him going, "Are you saying I can't stay in CLI?" He goes, "Do the art that you can, make it your own." And he's always been super encouraging. And when Rita Sewell comes to the cities for seminars, I always look at Peter and he goes, I've asked her to limit it to 45 minutes of the real, the between kneeling and sitting on the ground stuff, because I know what that's like at the end of a seminar. I thought, thank you, because it's that part of the art is very, very cool, and I can watch videos on it until my the cows come home, but I can't physically do that stuff, and Peter really opened my eyes to there's so much more of the art than just that. Good. And that's the art that I teach, and I share that with my students. Is there's a whole part of this art that I want you to see, but I can't physically do, because it. And after they go to one of those seminars, and usually we go and grab some food on our way back, and they're crawling out of their car like someone like pushing toothpaste out of a tube. And they go, oh my! I guess I understand what you're saying with this. It's very taxing, but it's the coolest art I've ever seen, and it, like I said, it fits everything that I do so well. It's amazing. And those practitioners, whether it be Rita Sewell, Peter Kwan, Mao, any of those other folks that I've seen, Guro Dan, even Guro Dan this last time goes, he does the age thing. Yeah. And, because he wants to see who's in there. and he goes, you're doing pretty good for your age. And I'm like, well, but then I look at you, right? Right. But he encourages you to do what you're modifying what you can do so that you can continue the art within your physical ability. And for instructors to say that instead of pushing you in the mold like you talked about, what a cool thing. Where do you find that in anything in life, that people aren't trying to put you in a box, but they're saying, if the box isn't working for you, cut down the corners so it does work for you. It's a very, very cool thing.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And it just, once again, first of all, congrats on nearly 50 years of martial arts.
Oh, thank you.
I know that you've been doing martial arts a long time. I've seen you for over a decade at the Kali Group, right? 50 years. That is, an experience and an accomplishment, and it's something yeah, you're welcome, brother.
I'm lucky that I have a wife that makes what I've done in martial arts. I fail in comparison to things athletically that she's done, but she's, why aren't you got time now that you're retired, go out to LA, go train with Guro. Yeah. He's not going to be there forever. She's, no matter what, she's always pushing me to do more and stuff, which is really helpful to have that type of relationship and so forth. But it's been this thing that we do has taken me in such cool different directions. I mean, I've done everything from compete at, in the competitive side of martial arts, to being a head coach for a U.S. team, to Ireland, to competing, training fighters and taking them all over the country, to working with medical professionals and law enforcement. All these cool things that I've been lucky and blessed to be part of, and it's changed me as an individual. Right? I shared with you my Irish heritage, and my dad always told me that my dad was one of my first trainers. He boxed in high school and in the military in World War II. And so one of my favorite pictures is of him training me, I should say, some basic boxing in the campgrounds when we used to go camping and stuff. But he always said that, you got to get a hold of that Irish fuse and do it early. And now I look at that and I kind of chuckle. It seems like a millennial ago that I've dealt with that stuff, but I think Rick talks about it all the time is that we have the ability to change lives. Yeah. we have to make things better for others. And going from what I went, right, from training fighters and so forth to where I am now, and my mindset has changed for multiple reasons. I'm not into training people to be more violent. I'm like girl Rick says, we're looking to make a calmer, better place, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't mind watching fights, but I have no desire to train fighters to do that anymore for multiple reasons. Whether it be all the studies that I've read now of concussions and what they do to the brain, and but also that my wife ruined me when it comes to training fighters. She was one of my fighters back in the day, and being that she's an amazing athlete herself, I don't know if you knew that she was a collegiate softball player and was All-American, and her senior year got a letter to try out for the Olympics but busted her foot, so she wasn't able to do that. She two-time national kickboxer, three-time state boxing champion. She did CrossFit and was 120th or 130th in the U.S. for her age class for CrossFit, and now
no
she's
joke.
No, that's no joke. I've got videos of her deadlifting 340, and she's only 5'5", and like
You showed me.
she goes,
You
huh?
showed me that one time when I first met you, and then we ended up talking, and you showed
Yeah.
me, and you were telling me, because I think there was another event I was asking you about, but you were going to go support your wife, and you showed me that deadlift, and I was like, oh, wow. It's amazing.
Yeah, she's a very competitive lady, and now she's heavily into pickleball. So
That is
so
like
when she
sweeping the
competes,
country
I'm
now,
the
the pickleball.
yep.
It is.
So it's pretty cool. So now I'm the pickleball support husband.
Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah. Cool.
She supports you going out to California and seeing Guru, and in a 50-year long career, uh, having that support probably is a big part of why you can
Yeah,
do the things
yeah.
that you do and be able to do it. My wife is the exact same way. I lost my job. I took care of adults with developmental disabilities. Came
Yes, I know.
home.
Hey,
Yeah, came home
very respectable
brokenhearted.
job.
Thank you, brother. Came home brokenhearted. The people that I just took care of did not even they like my one guy that I take care of all the time literally just said to me on the last day we were open, "Well, we'll do the same thing we do on Monday that we did today, Jamie." And I literally clocked out and left. And I was like, he doesn't even know. I'll probably never see him again.
Right.
But anyway,
That's hard.
it is. It is.
That's
But
hard.
well, that day, then I totaled my car by hitting a deer on the way home. So that was
Mm.
bada bing, bada boom, right? But my
Right.
wonderful wife, the reason I brought it up was she had told me, well, you got enough students right now to be able to do it. So, you're going to turn 50 years old right now. It's time to do it. Time
Yep.
to do it. And I
Good
thank
for
you
you.
for that. Yeah, brother.
I watch your videos that your students you and your students put together. They're good videos. And the I can't think of her name. Blonde hair, older lady.
Lynn.
Yeah, she's a sweetheart. Oh my gosh. She was at last time Rita Sawal was over at Peter's
Yeah.
school. Um, such a nice personality. Really a gem. You've got a really good person there in your organization. Everybody I've met from you and your organization are a reflection of you, and it's high praise. High praise.
I appreciate that. We all care about each other. That's the most important thing.
Well, it's a community, right?
Yeah, it is.
And
It
the same
is.
thing I tell my people is this yes, we do the whole martial art thing. You pay me for lessons and I teach you and stuff. But when my people come in, I greet them all. How is your week going? What's going on? It's a community. We really, if there's an illness or a death in those people's families, I make sure that we all sign a card and send it off to them, and so that they know that they have support. And that's the thing that I love about what we do, is that interconnection with people's lives and making it better to try to scream out the off-color bad stuff that's currently going on in our world.
Yeah, brother. Best way to put it.
That's the most important thing, right?
Yeah.
That's the only way we're really going to make change is do the things that make the biggest difference, is being present for the people and changing their lives for the better.
My man, I enjoyed so much having you on the show.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It was an honor having me be a part of this. This is really kind of cool. Thank you.
You're very welcome, and I enjoyed our conversation. God bless. Do you know of anyone you would think recommend for the show?
Yeah, Mark Burge. Mark Burge has been my training partner for years. He's an instructor over at MKJ. He's
wonderful.
Really a neat guy. Does helps teach CLOT over there and stuff, but very dynamic gentleman, and just the coolest person I know. You had the other one on your podcast. Jacob is and Mary are two just amazing people. Classic guy. I like him a lot. I always look forward to seeing him.
Me too. And one of the really neat things about doing the podcast is I get to have longer conversations with you guys. And I've been able to talk to him, and I've never been able to speak with you as long, but I think that that's one of the benefits for me. And I really appreciate all of you guys, and you've all made a big difference in my life too. So,
and I appreciate that. As instructors, I shared this with Tim. It's kind of difficult to promote, just to learn how to promote yourself. It's not about me. It's about what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And that you're taking time and talking to us and sharing some of the things that we've done is, God bless you. That's really kind of cool. I think it's a very nice thing that this podcast does, and the directions that you've been able to point this at. There's so many very talented individuals out there, and like I said, to have me, one of the smallest fishes in a huge lake of talent, is very, very humbling. I truly appreciate that.
Well, you are a humble man, and I really enjoyed having you on the show, and thank you for saying that, because that's one of the other reasons I do this, is I hope you guys get something out of it. You know what I mean? If something else, whatever that is, and not, that you're doing this to get something out of it, but we share our art, we share the art in our own interpretations, and we share ourselves. And if we can't do that with each other, then I don't really know what the freaking point is.
Well, that's just it, Jamie. I think the brotherhood that we have, both in the Inasano instructor family and also in the MKG family under Guro Shawn, is a special thing. It's a special bond, and we can not see each other for months, years, or longer. Mm-hmm. Yep. And when we see each other at an event, it's like time never changed, and we pick up where we were before. And it's to do that, and then be able to do some of the cool stuff that we get to do of punching, kicking, ground, stand, all that stuff, and do that in a learning environment where we all grow and we benefit from that. There's so many cool characters out there. Ty Campos. Did you have him on here yet?
No. Oh, he's been contacted. That guy. He's been contacted.
He's an amazing guy.
Yeah, he is.
Ty, or even Chad. Chad would be another good guy for you to have.
Chad.
All those guys over there that have been around a long time would be amazing. Like I said, there's so much talent in both families. It you probably have a Rolodex of several thousands to pick from with that, because they're like I said, it's just an amazing group.
It is an amazing group. I'm also the small person in the big pond, so my Rolodex isn't exactly filled. But I got some really cool people on there for sure.
Yeah,
And
very.
and it gives.
I've enjoyed listening to them. Really have.
Thank you. Appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Are you? A quick question for you. Are you heading out to do at least one day of summer camp this year over at MKG?
I will be at MKG on the Friday.
Okay. I'll miss you.
Teach every Saturday, and
okay.
So that splits it up for me. And
sure.
Me and
I was hoping that we could break bread at the picnic after on Sunday.
But I wish.
We'll catch you at the next event.
For sure, and we'll catch up soon. Like you, I need to get my ass out to California. So me and my wife are planning that trip right now in September.
Good for you. Yeah. Good for you. Like I said, I'm definitely going. If not sooner, I'm definitely going back to Sea Light Camp.
Yeah.
Had a chance to talk to Jason and A. I didn't know that there was a Nate Defenser connection between.
An ion system.
Yeah. But he's a very interesting guy, really nice guy.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, brother. This is Jamie Sparling, the head instructor of Affinity Martial Arts and Wellness in Wausau, Wisconsin, with the one and the only Shawn McCarthy of Combined Fighting Systems in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. We're signing off for the FormABLE podcast. Like, subscribe, all that happy horse. Boop, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Jamie. Take care.
Thank you, brother.